you can't help people, you can't help your family, you can't deliver on your responsibilities, I don't feel, without taking care of yourself.
Welcome to the Business of Parenting podcast. Tune in as we discuss the principles of successful parenting as a business professional. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of BOP, the Business of Parenting podcast, where I get to talk about anything and everything I want to talk about when it comes to parenting. I have an amazing guest with me today. I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. Ian Cruickshank with me. Ian, what's going on? How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well, and I appreciate that handle, but I don't know if that's entirely accurate.
All right, maybe I'll use infamous. Should I go with that one? I'll go.
Sure, whichever.
Hey, Ian, man, we got some cool topics that we're going to jam out today, and I really appreciate, by the way, you taking the time to connect and do this. You know, this has been kind of a pet project for my team and I for a couple of years, and it's finally come to the point where we're taking the time to record it. Like, you know, for everybody out there watching and listening right now, I am not an expert by any means. All right, I'm probably an expert at making mistakes. And, you know, if anything, that's where you can probably get a lot of the value from, right? But, you know, before we get into our topics, Ian, I love kind of kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story and a little background story. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of your family structure, that'll be a great way for us to kind of kick things off.
For sure. Be happy to. And I'll tell you, Jason, you know, as your invitation came through to have this conversation, you literally had me at parenting.
Did I? Oh, sweet.
As soon as you said that, I was excited. And it's really that kind of melting experience that many of us have when we're talking about parenting, when we're talking about our kids. One of the things that I've said often is that when we're at conferences, what do we talk about most? In fact, we talk most about our family and our kids.
100%.
You know, there's some business as well that gets included, but so many conversations about our family units and how proud we are of our children and all of those things.
Very much so.
So to give you a brief kind of overview of my world, we have two beautiful young men growing up in our home. We have an 8-year-old named Declan and an 11-year-old named Kaylin. And my wife Amber and I have been raising them from the beginning. We're, you know, quite a kind of stereotypical family. We've got the golden retriever. Recently, our cat passed away, sadly, around Christmas time. But we have, you know, all of those kind of little stereotypical kind of lovely family attributes. And we've been extremely fortunate. My wife and I have very similar parenting styles, very similar goals for how we want to parent. So we've been fortunate in being able to be extremely collaborative. You know, my other side of my life, I run a company with a great team called Leadbox, and we provide websites and digital advertising services and a variety of technologies for automotive dealers to sell more cars, frankly. You know, for us on the parenting side of things, you know, we've all gone through these incredible experiences through COVID. We'll probably talk a little bit about that. Yeah, just generally excited to have the conversation about raising kids. Just like Jason said, I'm no expert either. I love doing it. I love providing little nuggets of wisdom that have been passed on to me, to new parents that are coming down the road. But it's all really a function of, you know, we try as best we can. And sometimes it works. It's this fantastic social experiment called parenting.
It is a social experiment called parenting. And, you know, like I said, we got a chance to talk a little bit before we got recording today. You know, I'd be the first one, you know, to admit that, you know, I didn't know what to do as a parent. I got to be honest with you. And I think there's a lot of people out there, look, there's not an instruction manual. And I would prefer an instruction manual if someone gave one to me. But, you know, it was years ago or a few years back when my wife kind of made the comment that, you know, if your kids were a business, you would probably allocate more time to that. And it got me, it hit me hard. And I just realized for myself that that's actually true. It's just because that's the way I kind of look and process things. So that's why I love putting this podcast. I'm excited that you're here. So we're gonna have some fun conversation. Our first topic of today is positive learning environment. I would say how to kind of create one and kind of how to continue to nurture one, which I think is so cool because I think, it's definitely in business and also in parenting, right? It's keeping the day-to-day positive can be very difficult when there's usually like 15 fires going on all randomly. I don't know about you. We have a dog, so I was just thinking about this morning, right? It was like the dog pooped right out next to the window or the sliding door. All right. We were running a little late. One of the kids didn't want to wear a jacket. The other one was, and I'm like, and trying to stay positive and identify the learning opportunities. I'm going to tell you, it was not easy this morning, but that's the goal. The goal is ultimately to try to maintain this positive learning environment. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on, A, how do we create one? And then B, how do we maintain it?
Yeah. I love that that topic in kind of general terms, and really, one of the things when thinking about our upcoming conversation, I made a few notes, and for us in our family, the biggest thing, the number one thing is respect, and it's really having that mutual respect, and I would say that the mutual is probably more important than the respect word in that sense. Because so often, you can encounter the kind of stereotypes of parenting where, children need to respect their elders. They need to respect their parents. Yes. And for us, creating that environment, we focus a lot on it being a mutual respect. So, as an example, we have a no name calling rule within our family structure. And in fact, it started from my wife when she and I first started spending our lives together. There was an instance where I got frustrated and I said something that I shouldn't have said. And she put it to me really well in saying, something to the effect of, would you say that to your mom? Right. Mm-hmm. And, we all hold our mothers in high regard, or most of us do, you never know. And, it had me reflecting on that. And so that really translated into it. And I can now, look back and say that I've probably gone outside of that, or she and I have gone outside of that because, arguments happen and people get frustrated and that sort of thing. But quite honestly, if I reflect clearly, there's probably only a handful of times, like one handful of times where we've gone outside of that. So too with our kids and helping them to see the value not only of being respectful to us and us in turn respectful to them, but also to each other. Yes. And building up this idea that they are each other's greatest teammate. And that, we do our best to ensure some equity in who gets in trouble or that they both get in trouble when there's situations where that makes sense. If something's gone wrong and we don't know the details, we don't often seek to find the details as to who did what or who said what. It's just like, okay, here's what happened. The video games are off. Go figure out something else to do. Or I'm taking that ball and y'all are going to go figure out something else to do.
But is that normally our gut reaction, though? Is our normally gut reaction, right? Is to, just take away whatever it is, and I love the fact that you bring up this respect. I like to go down this rabbit hole a little bit more because I'm thinking like, but I'm with you on this, right? If I'm going to create kind of this positive environment so that someone can learn from their actions, this topic of mutual respect, I'm with, because, I sometimes like, they're my kids. I'm like, they should just respect me, right? I said something, they should just do it, and now if I translate that into the business world, all right, there are probably a fair amount of managers out there that probably think the same thing, right? I'm their boss. They should just do what I'm told, right? But we know from a business perspective, that's not the best way to manage a good team, right? You manage that team through respect and leadership. But for some reason, we get into the parenting mode and we probably forget a lot about this.
Exactly right.
So how do we kind of I love this mindset, but how do you kind of maintain that mindset through times where they're like, no, she kicked me, no, he kicked me, no, it's tough, man.
Well, and look, there's, we actually, do more in the way of, and punishing is maybe a strong word in these instances, but we do more to reprimand telling on your brother than we necessarily do on what your brother did.
I like that.
Right. So it's maybe a factor in it. And again, like we said off the hop, we're not experts, but when someone comes up and tells me, someone comes up from the basement or down from the room or whatever the case and says, Kaylin or Declan, vice versa, did X. Well, why are you telling me? I don't want you telling me. You're effectively telling on your teammate, go work it out. And so a lot of times we enable them, and again, I think that comes into that positive environment, enabling them to solve for their own problems. And funny to translate into the business world. I've always had an approach where, when I was managing sales teams, and the sales leaders, or as the sales leader speaking with my sales team, if two sales reps had an issue, it was quite simple. Figure it out. If you can't, I'll figure it out.
Yes.
If you can't come to a decision, if you can't come to a way to go forward, I'll make the decision, and probably neither of you will like it. Right? So,
no, but you're absolutely right. I mean,
giving them that opportunity.
I had a situation where I had two sales guys. I mean, get to the point where they're almost fist fighting with each other over a split deal, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny you brought that, because I had to do the exact same thing. I just had to go out there and say, look, you guys either figure this out on your own, or I'm going to come figure it out for you. And trust me, you're not going to necessarily like it when I figure it out, right? Because I'm just going to I may just take the bloody commission myself, right?
Yeah.
I think they end up Shamboing for it, like one of those rock paper scissors
for it. But that is totally fine.
It seemed kiddish, but I mean, I can see my kids doing the same.
Yeah. Well, we've all got that part in us, right? And I want to take it a little bit further down this respectful communication.
Mm-hmm.
And creating a positive environment, I believe, stems a lot from behaving in a positive way, behaving in a respectful way, and all those aspects about not using these negative terms, has always been an important piece for us. It's like, the S word isn't allowed in our house.
Mm-hmm.
The S word is stupid. Right. So they're not allowed to say stupid. They're not allowed to say hate. I hate you, or whatever it is. And we had an interesting or kind of a funny thing. We had a babysitter over, and the babysitter said a bad word. And Kaylin said, "Oh my gosh, you said the S word." She didn't realize she was saying a bad word. She said the word stupid, and she's probably talking about a game or about something that happened or whatever it was. "Oh, you said a bad word." And he goes through the bad words, and it was basically like stupid and hate and idiot and fuck.
Oh.
Like, whoa, okay, right, good to know. That's glad they're categorically in the same environment as the senior swear of them all kind of thing in English diction. But pretty cool that these kids, and he was probably 6 at the time, but had it instilled that these words that are disrespectful, not necessarily swears, not necessarily bad words per se for typical social environments, but just words that don't convey the respect and appreciation and care and kindness for one another.
But you're 100% right. If we can't maintain respect, we're never going to get to a place where we can have positive learning environment, right? Which and I love the fact that you kind of this is a great segue actually into, I think, to our next kind of subject, right? Positivity, a positive learning environment, we can only really kind of achieve that if we have kind of a safe place to kind of express those emotions, So it's almost like I need to be able to have a safe place so I can express my emotions. Now, once I've been able to express my emotions, then I can kind of move into this positive learning environment. But to your point, Ian, none of this can happen if there's not this mutual level of respect that's going on both at the parent level and at the kid level. And I think there's a lot of parents that struggle with that. We're like, they're my kids, they should respect me. It's like, well, it's not, we're not trying to put, like parent to kid respect. It's like, no, you mutually respect each other just as people. All right. It's just, and with being people, either small people or large people, we all have to express emotion. And and I just, and so that's where I want to go with our subject is like right now is like safe place, creating that safe place to express those emotions. I think will lead us closer to having a positive learning environment. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how do we create that safe place and how do we maintain it?
Yeah, I love it. And, I'm a big proponent of, emotional or emotion quotient and that kind of aspect, the EQ of things. IQ, not so much. EQ,
Yes,
I spend a lot of time with that. It's really quite interesting. Like call a spade. I'm a softie. We joke in the Cruickshank family that our kidneys are too close to our eyes, right? So it's whatever kind of emotional situation. I was actually in the hockey rink or lacrosse. It's an indoor box lacrosse that our boys play this time of year, and the boys were working really hard through this tournament. And their season has gone really, really well. Lots of successes, not lots of defeat, not lots of losses. And this group of 11 and 12-year-old boys were shattered by the loss in the bronze medal round. So they had a rough game the previous day. But they were coming back and they were feeling strong about their potential to win the bronze medal. And it was a very tight game. We ended up losing by 1 point, and they were just beside themselves. And, there was a lot of talk in the locker room that was really well expressed by our coaching staff. We've got a great plugged in team. And, part of the conversation of the core of the conversation was really around, you should feel proud of the effort that you put in.
Yes.
You should feel proud of working so hard. You should feel proud of all of these things. And when our head coach kind of looks to me to help on the culture side and those sorts of things, it's something that I love in the workplace as well as at home. And he asked me if I had anything to add. And what I added was that everyone in the room feeling what they were feeling, the tears that were coming down their faces, that all of these things were good emotions. All of these things, like feel all the feels, feel all the feelings, feel the frustration, feel the disappointment, feel the anger, feel the sadness, feel all of those pieces. These are all emotions that are appropriate right now. And, sit in those emotions and don't be upset by those emotions. We'll get to the place later where we can, think about the work that we put in, think about the pride of those feelings. But it's, I think that kind of encapsulates our parenting style in our family is when kids are upset, it's okay to be upset. When kids cry, it's okay to cry. When I cry, it's okay to cry. All of those things. And, just enabling that experience, but also helping them to develop the ability to name those emotions. Because I think as young people, we go through this process of learning happy, sad, mad, glad.
Yeah, there's nothing in between.
These typical juxtaposed emotions that are, monosyllabic and really easy to work with and understand. Whereas I'm frustrated. How do I understand frustrated as being different from disappointed? How do I understand disappointed as being different from angry? Those kinds of things, and figuring out what the different pieces are and how to understand how they affect, how they feel, how they impact your body, impact your conversation, impact how you're communicating, all of those different things. Because there's so much to emotion that we need to help them develop.
100%. And as parents, I got to be honest, we have to do the exact same thing.
Yes.
Look, I'll be the first one to admit, look, I had a great childhood. I did, but I was told a lot as a kid to go with the flow. All right. It was when there was big emotions, it was just kind of like let it go and go with the flow. So I learned to kind of, you know, compartmentalize all of my, compartmentalize all of my emotions into boxes so I can just kind of continue to kind of move with the flow. So, when I got into the automotive industry, oh, this was great. Oh, this was amazing. There's no emotion at all. It's suck it up, buttercup, check it out the door and get the damn job done. I was like, I took to this like a fish in water. I was like, this is amazing,
Yeah.
but I realized that wasn't necessarily actually the best way to, to run a dealership or even to be the manager of it. And I think, you were talking earlier when in our conversation, we mentioned the word COVID, right? And, talk about emotions that even as adults, all of a sudden we had to deal with, and we never had to deal with in the past. I mean, there was legitimate fear. There was fear of, am I going to be able to come back to work? Am I going to be able to get a paycheck? Am I going to be able to still do my job? And I'm the first one to admit I'm not emotionally intelligent. I'm getting better. I truly am. But, to your point, like I need to almost spend the time myself to identify how can I help my little ones, or even how can I help people at my business if I'm not able to identify my own big emotions, all right, and know, is this a fear? Is this disappointment? Is this legitimate anger? Or is it, and what are the differences there that I don't know if I can necessarily create that safe place? So, I think anybody that's listening or watching that's running a business or have the parents, it's like, you always got to take the time to kind of do that for yourself, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it has me thinking about a type of conversation that we have in instances that they present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So not, all that regularly, but it's really a function of really being very fortunate. Our kids go to great schools. Our kids, are early readers. They're very capable. They're, thanks to my wife, frankly, I had all sorts of learning disabilities as a kid.
I did too.
Unfortunately, they've got her brains, and that's a real bonus. But when things go wrong, we talk about the good to be found in bad things.
Mm-hmm.
So the learning that can come from a negative outcome, the learning that can come from, and actually just my boys' desks are over here in our family office space here, and there's a note on the wall beside my boy's desk, which he wrote to his fifth grade teacher, who he adores his fifth grade teacher. He had the same teacher for grade 4 and grade 5 in the split class. But he has a propensity to be distracted, he's one that loves a fidget spinner because it can keep him on task, right?
Yep.
And, the experience was some sort of negative experience. I can't even remember specifically what it was that prompted him writing this letter. But the good thing that came out of it was writing this note back to his teacher, reflecting on what had happened, developing the skills to be able to understand what and why, and to be able to communicate it, to be able to take responsibility for his actions in that situation, and really to move forward in a positive way with a teacher who appreciated that, that he took the time to internalize those things and move forward. It's that finding the good and bad. There's just, COVID's such a perfect example. Honestly, our family, for all the typical things that were really tricky and difficult and uncomfortable, everything from, having to wipe down your groceries to, for a 3 or 4 month period, taking, no wage from the organization, that sort of stuff to keep things moving smoothly. But I was, as probably you were as well, Jason, a very regular traveler. And, the black card from Air Canada that says you're a super elite 100K plus traveler, like that was year after year, probably 4, 5, 6 years of that kind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to hang up my briefcase quite literally for close to 2 years, if not, even a little bit more. I've been at a couple of events locally, and I'll be speaking at the used car week in Toronto at the end of this month.
I'm
and
looking
that's
forward to seeing
literally going to be my first time on stage in front of the dealer body, in front of our industry since COVID happened, right? And that time has been one where I get to kiss my kids goodnight every night. I get to see them when they come home from school, and they come, like you were saying before the start of the show, if they come in and I'm on an important call, I'm giving them a big hug, and I'm typically introducing them to whoever I'm having a chat with.
Yep.
Right. We're all in these work from home, or got more familiar anyway, and more comfortable with these work from home environments. So we take advantage of that. And there's all these positives that have come from that experience. So it's the good in the bad, and finding that, and it's, silver lining approach or whatever it is. But, when we functionally actively dig into those really yucky situations, we can always find something in the way of learning. And that's our first core value at Leadbox is growth. Forward.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. It's always kind of evolving. When I think about the couple topics that we covered so far, positive learning environment and a safe place to express your emotions, look, there's no end game here, it's like, we love like calling it a race, but it's not really a race, because there's really no end point to it. Right. It's, I almost kind of consider it a marathon, but even then there's no finish line, but you just have to find that pace that you're comfortable kind of continuing to evolve and run with, and then just continue to move forward with it. Like people's evolution and change is not always comfortable for everybody. It wasn't comfortable for me, like for me to have to change to actually be able to identify my own big emotions and not react to other people's big emotions, because I'm not an emotional person. So when my kids had emotions, it was like, what? No, go to your room. Like, that was my answer. My answer was like, no, you're not having, if the emotion you're having right now, I could barely deal with it. So here's my answer. Go to your room. Right. But it took some time. Now, this is kind of a good segue kind of into our next topic, which is taking care of yourself, as not only as a business owner, but also as a parent. I think definitely, look, both of these jobs are incredibly difficult jobs to do. Right. And, I find, in parenting and also in my business life, I don't do a great job of taking care of myself, and to your point, working now home from COVID, it's worse, right? Yeah. There is no time break. There's no, I'm eating lunch right here, right in front of this monitor, and I'm just continuing to work, right? Like, there's, if I'm clocking out at the end of the day at 5:30, I'm literally walking right upstairs and just go from one business to the other business,
to the next.
And there's no space in there in between, where you can decompress for a little bit and stuff like that. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts, on how we can kind of take care of ourselves, not only as a leader in, with our kids, but also just kind of a leader in business as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a couple things to get into with this. And, I think number one for me is I have an incredible wife who really has helped me to require, or to, has helped me find that balance. Like I'm straight up, in the category of workaholic. Probably, I describe it differently. I love what I do.
Yes.
Right. But it means that, if it's 8 o'clock at night, or first thing in the morning, I'm just as happy working away, or 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Depends on the task that gets me engaged. But I'm also a big believer in putting the back to the airline industry, putting your mask on before you put on the mask of the person sitting beside you. You can't help people. You can't help your family. You can't deliver on your responsibilities, I don't feel, without taking care of yourself. And I'm someone who is very aware of the stressors and the things that can get in the way. I had an experience where it was my first role with a smaller company. My career started with Rogers and then with Post Media, or CanWest, formerly Post Media. And I moved into an organization that was a small organization, and it was, tricky kind of leadership situation that was my leader. I was there as chief revenue. And the stress levels, like I was walking the dog and having heart palpitations, right? Like walking the dog through the forest, like we live near the woods. Okay. So, you're in this serene environment, you're walking the dog, the work day is over, everything should be fabulous. And I was dealing with heart palpitations. I'm like, this is not right. And I'm someone who grew up as an athlete and spent a lot of time very active. First part of my career was in the ski industry, and so no stranger to physical, but I wasn't as tuned into the mental aspect. So in my next role, I left that organization and not too long after joined a company that you're familiar with, Jason, called Speed Shift Media. Joined them and I got back into working out. I got back into eating right. I got back into, not having as much coffee and staying up as late at night as I was. But it took me about 6 to 9 months to realize that I needed one more thing, and that was mindfulness and meditation. Yes. And, I could go on this massive diatribe about meditation, but frankly, you can YouTube and get all the information about meditation that you want. For me, it has worked extremely well. Today, my routine, and people, may gawk at the routine, but I literally spend, and I'm not taking it from anyone because I do it very early in the day,
for sure,
but I literally spend about 3 hours on me and on planning my day every day. So I wake up in the morning and I meditate, and then I journal, and then I write out the plan for my day, and then I do some cardio, and I work out, and then I shower, have my shake, and I'm at my desk for 8:30 or whatever it is. But that kind of focused start to the day, that very intentional and now habitual practice has got me into a space where my glass is like my glass of what I can handle is completely full at the start of the day. And we deal with a lot in operating businesses. We deal with a lot in handling the automotive business through supply chain issues and inventory shortages, right? We deal with a lot every single day. So the next piece in that gap that you're talking about between 5:30 and getting into the family experience, I've actually added mindfulness there too. And that started when I was in my last year at Speed Shift, where I would meditate for 20 minutes before leaving the office. And now I similarly, I don't do it every day.
But no, to your point, you have to refill the tank. Right. Like, I mean, I love it. You're up around 5, you're getting your 3 hours in, right. Before, and your tank is full. Right. Yeah. And, I just think for a lot of people right now, because a lot of people are working from home, that they don't have that decompression and recompress, kind of time or refill point, in the day where they can take that 20 minutes or 30 minutes on their way home. I used to do it with podcasts, right? I used to I drive home, I got my 30 minutes, I throw on a podcast or something like that. And it was just and I could just so that I can just decompress everything from the rest of the day, start with the new business that's coming up by the time I get home, but I love the fact you bring up routine, right? Because I that is such a key point, and not everyone's routine has to be the same. I love your routine. My routine is somewhat similar. I'm a 5 a.m., kind of a person as well. I have a walking desk, so I actually probably hacked it too much. Where I actually kind of walk and jog while I'm still working. Nice.
I've kind of left it at the stand up.
Stand up. Okay. Well, stand up. But it's the routine. That's what you were saying. Yeah. It all kind of comes down, to that routine of taking care of yourself and finding those moments where you can be mindful and kind of reset, and that's important to kind of just cover everything we have, because I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation, but if your tank ain't full, trust me, there's no way you're going to be able to consistently maintain a safe place to express your emotions.
100%. And let me just add one little other nugget that has been so appreciated by friends of mine that I've shared it with along the way. We tend to stereotypically or socially place a real value on having dinner as a family each night.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I have found such value in having dinner after the kids go to bed on certain nights.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So every Friday night we have martinis and homemade pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that night is always after the kids, but then typically 1 or 2 other nights during the week, typically weekends we're eating as a family, and most days we're eating as a family. But those times where just she and I can connect, and whether we're, having a chat at the table, or whether we're watching a show together, or whatever it is, but we're spending time together without these little stressors.
Yes.
Hanging out with us, which we of course love the days that we have breakfast as a family, and we have this, nice little safe place that we can talk about anything in the cone of trust and all that kind of good stuff. But to be able to exercise that time together, to make sure that we then fill our love tanks, right, with one another, right? If we're not on the same page and we're not feeling those happy feelings, pretty hard to display that for our kids and treat our 100%. Kids 100%.
Well, it comes down to routine. I love the fact you brought that up, because that's a wonderful hack. And maybe we're actually creating another podcast topic right now. We have the business of parenting, and maybe we can just call it the business of marriage. But
I don't know that we'll ever get anywhere close to getting that right, but we all work at it, and it's a project, and we love that project, right?
Exactly. It's a project, and we always have to maintain and balance those things. Hey, Ian, we covered some amazing topics today, and I can't tell you how much I really appreciate you just being open and just authentic and just real with me today. This has been so much fun. But for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now, who would maybe like to connect with you, even follow along with your journey, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah. And, feel free to reach out on the email side of things. It's just ian@leadboxhq.com if you want to reach out to me directly. But frankly, I've got to a space where on the social side of things, I really just spend my time within LinkedIn. I don't spend a whole lot of time in the Facebook world or Instagram. I've just haven't found myself to be a natural content creator. So Jason, I appreciate you inviting me to be part of this content.
No, man, this has been so much fun. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time again. This was a lot of fun. Ian, you have yourself an amazing day, and thank you.
You too. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business of Parenting podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.